Hello and welcome to this manufacturing process technology part 1 module 3. We are going to discuss a little more on the non-traditional machining processes and how they evolved. So, let us look at as I discussed last time, the non-traditional machining processes emerged because of the increasing requirement of the manufacturing industry to machine new and novel materials, which would be applied to the aerospace or the automotive sector, and they would typically be high strength, high ductility, high hardness, stronger, tougher kind of materials. And sometimes the non-conventional domain would be necessitated because the conventional would not work for such materials. So, let us look at some of these processes which have been figured out, or the first process that I would like to give you an illustration is the ultrasonic machining, or the where there is a abrasive particle which is involved typically, and so it can be either a ultrasonic machining process or a water jet machining process, which are typical examples of single action mechanical non-traditional machining processes. The machining medium is solid grains suspended in a abrasive slurry in the former, while a fluid is employed in the WJM process. The introduction of abrasives to the fluid jet enhances the machining efficiency and is known as abrasive water jet machining, and basically it means mechanical energy, that is number one. It also means, in one sense, you use ultrasonic component, which I am going to show later in great details, that how this ultrasonic machining is going to work. And so, there is a sort of a vibrating head here which comes and presses on this abrasive, which is in a slurry form, and it activates on the workpiece by either freely throwing the grain or pressing the grain against the workpiece. In the second domain is the WJM, or the water jet machining, where a jet of water at a certain pressure with abrasive, loaded with abrasive, is used for a workpiece which is submerged, and it is used for the purpose of taking off the material. So, let us talk about the first mechanical material removal process, which is the abrasive jet machining process. So, in the AJM, the material removal takes place due to impinging of the fine abrasive particles. So, you can see here, for example, is a nozzle, okay, and this nozzle is basically made up of tungsten carbide or some other hard and tough material which can withstand the abrasion of moving abrasive particles. There is a high speed air at a velocity of about 150 to 300 meter per second, and there is a loading of the abrasive particles into the air. So, the way that it emanates out from the nozzle is a combination of the high speed air and the abrasive particles, and these particles are thrown at a certain nozzle tip distance, which is about 800 microns to the machine surface, and this abrasive particles come out, okay, and they generate mechanical action within the workpiece surface, which results in brittle fracture of the surface. So, basically what is going to happen here is that the abrasive particles are typically about 25 microns in diameter, and they are forced by air discharges which are at a pressure of several atmospheric pressures, and it causes a brittle fracture. You can see here abrasive grain coming and striking a workpiece at a certain velocity, and therefore a fracture is created in the workpiece, as you can see here, and the fractured particle is now moving by the flowing air out of this cavity. So, that is how the fracture of the work surface and the formation of the cavity comes out. So, the abrasive particle impinging on the work surface at a high velocity at this impact causes a tiny brittle fracture, and the following air or gas carries away the dislodged small workpiece particle. So, that is how the abrasive jet machining processes are envisioned. The other processes which are of concern is, as I told, ultrasonic machining process, again a mechanical process where you can see there is a slurry of the grain and the abrasive powder, and this slurry is actually applied by shooting the slurry into the workpiece surface through a nozzle, and then there is a vibrating tool head which basically is in a ultrasonic frequency, which is frequency over and above about 20 kilohertz. The amplitude of motion of such a tool is about 15 to 20 micron, which is similar to the grain diameter which is there, and the purpose of this tool is to sort of apply a feed force. So, there are two cases, one where the particle gets deflected from the moving surface at a high velocity. So, it is called the free grain case, where this would cause some mechanical action on the workpiece. The other case would be where the particle is entrapped between the vibrating head and the workpiece, which would actually create again a brittle, tiny brittle fracture on the surface. So, both these combined together would result in MRR, or material removal rate. We are going to model extensively when we do this process in great details later on. Okay. So, therefore, you will have the grain hammering as well as the free throw grains as the main cause of the material removal here. The other technique that I would like to illustrate is thermal machining, where thermal energy is applied. So, this energy could be in form of short discharges, which is done in the EDM case. It could be in case of electron beam rastering and scanning over the surface, where you can super focus the energy to a very small area, so that you can directly penetrate through a few layers and go into and create a vapor pocket which comes out. Okay. And then you have laser beam machining, where again the energy is much more intensified and it is a direct vaporization on the surface because of the photon to phonon conversion. Okay. So, you can see here the EDM case has a dielectric fluid deployed, because the idea is that the spark will not be formulated unless there is a dielectric, and it has to break down the dielectric and formulate a spark. So, in the case of electron beam, there is a accelerated electron beam which is created by a perforated anode and a a thermally heated filament, which is also the cathode, and by thermionic emissions the beam is generated and is focused by magnetic fields into a very small area, which can induce the flux density of the beam to be very high, and this creates some kind of a thermal imprint on the material. You have plasma beam machining, where the same thing is done by plasma, which is a hot ions and electrons combination, and the two here, EDM and PBM, are really media based. So, you have either in one case a gas plasma, in another case there is a dielectric breakdown which is happening. The one which carries the electrons of the E beam is actually typically done in vacuum, because if there are air molecules, they will again get ionized and they may not have the same impact as a E beam machine. And there may be in particularly small writing cases where you need a consistency of the momentum delivery, and also a high momentum where the wavelength would reduce. You remember the famous lambda equal to h by p formulation. So, the momentum is high and the wavelength is low. So, one of the reasons why more momentum is gathered together by E beam is also to sort of reduce this wavelength. So, you can write at a higher resolution using E beam. So, they have constructed E beam lithography, for example, and other processes where very small scale writing can be done with this particular method. But here the idea is that it has to be done without a medium. So, it should typically be a vacuum column, and therefore, it limits the sizes of the workpiece that you are wanting to machine using these processes. Then there is a ion beam machining, again similar to the the principles are more or less similar to the E beam. Only thing is, in this case it are ions generated, heavy ions generated through a vacuum chamber and striking on the surface. So, the ions can either be accumulated on the surface, so that they can have additive micro machining, or they can be used for taking off the material from the surface. So, that can be subtractive micro machining, so on and so forth. And then you have laser beam machining, where there is a photon to phonon conversion leading to a local melting of the workpiece. So, thermal machining removes the machining allowance by melting or vaporizing the workpiece material. Many secondary phenomena occur during the machining. These are micro cracking, formation of heat affected zones, striations, etc. And the source of heat could be either a plasma as either a discharge as EDM, or plasma in case of PBM, or photons as during LBM, electrons in E beam machining, and ions in the ion beam machining, etc. So, that is the thermal machining process. So, you did mechanical and thermal. The other important process is the chemical and electrochemical machining process, where either you use the Faraday's laws to either deposit material electrochemically on a surface or take off or machine subtract material away from a surface. And here what you do is typically you take a you take an electrolyte which has a certain level of conductivity and you dip or insert two electrodes. One of them gets coated up and another gets material subtracted from its surface. So, immediately when you do that, there is a formation of a dual layer between the electrode which comes in and the electrolyte which is there, and there is a charge transport across this dual layer, and this charge transport is what is the cause of either taking away the material from one of the electrodes and depositing the material on the other electrode. So, you can either use it as a machining or a building up process if you just reverse the polarities or reverse the electrodes. And here what is going on is that if you want to use it as a machining process, you need to ensure that whatever comes out of the one of the electrodes which is supposed to get machined, the ions which come out thereby interact with the solution or the medium which they come out into, and they convert into a chemical which otherwise get precipitated. So, therefore, without depositing it on the other electrode, you are generating a mechanism through which the material that comes out gets precipitated, and precipitated means it does not dissolve in the electrolyte solution per se, and it goes down. Okay. So, in case of machining steels or iron, there is a tendency of ferrous ions to form ferrous hydroxide, and ferrous hydroxide is a something which can be precipitated. So, therefore, the idea is that if I flow the electrolyte now very close to this electrode and apply a potential, whatever is coming out of the electrolyte is getting carried away as precipitates, and you can recirculate that electrolyte by filtering that precipitate off. Okay. And so, that is a machining process. So, that is how you do ECM or electrochemical machining. You also have processes of chemical or photochemical machining, where obviously there is going to be either a chemical deposition or a chemical etching, which happens because either there is a plasma, for example, of ions which can create some chemistry on the surface. It can go beyond the surface and also be able to influence the bonds, and there you can either use a gas like medium as a plasma, as I told, or even a non plasma, which is like a gas etching gas or etching environment. You can also use a etching liquid, and these processes have more so generated because of the requirements of the semiconductor industry, because these are systems where very accurately you can control the etch depth, for example, or even the etch geometry, and there are many processes associated with this. We will do some great detailed investigation in this chemical and electrochemical processes as well when we talk about the non-traditional machining domain. So, we have covered now 3 different domains: the mechanical abrasion based machining, the thermal machining, and the chemical electrochemical machining. So, that leads us to the utility of all this in micro fabrication, particularly MEMS fabrication. And so, we will have a small module towards the end, if time permits, to study about this area of how some of these processes can be utilized for fabricating MEMS structures. So, in micro machining, or let us say MEMS machining, MEMS grade machining, you do various techniques like etching, deposition, photolithography, oxidation, epitaxy, etc. You do deep RI, thick plating, and these techniques we would discuss in great details. And then the idea is that either you do bulk or surface micro machining, where in one case you subtract the material away. You can see here the material is being subtracted away by the etching processes, and here you can see the same thing being deposited into. Okay. So, there is a subtractive machining, which is either which is also known as the bulk micro machining, or there is an additive machining here where you can actually build on. Okay. So, this is additive process, and that is how you are basically able to generate micro features and structures on the surface. So, whatever we would be doing in non-traditional would actually end up into maybe generating some of these MEMS based processes also, which can do micro machining on surfaces. So, that is going to be the brief overview of what is going to be taught in this course, and I would like to start with the engineering materials, in the next lecture, where we start with discussing some of the mechanical properties of the engineering materials, some of the properties related to how solidification processes would happen, and some of the properties related to post solidification, how you can do the treatment, so that their strength or ductility improves, and you can actually tailor the engineering properties for a certain application for that particular material. So, with that I am going to close this particular module. Thank you so much.